guys, all ready for the last real versus real of the year. I've got some festive clothes on, I have some decorations, I even switched out my coffee for cocoa, all special for the occasion. Now, your first question might be, why these two movies? And I'm not gonna lie, the main reason is that they're really two of the only theatrical animated Christmas movies that I know of. There really aren't many of them. But there is another reason I decided to do these two movies together.
First of all, they both have a very simple plot, like the sort you can sum up in a single sentence. One is about a bunch of kids going to the North Pole on a magical train, and the other one is about Santa's youngest son delivering a Christmas present that was missed on the initial delivery. Neither movie has a villain, and in both cases the majority of the film focuses on the journey. In the case of the Polar Express, the journey to the North Pole, and in the case of Arthur Christmas, the journey to Gwen's house.
So which one does it better? Well, let's start with the characters. And since it's really difficult to compare two sets of characters from completely different movies, I'm going to start by comparing the two main characters together, and then I'm just going to do the rest of the Polar Express characters together, and then the rest of the Arthur Christmas characters together.
So the main character in the Polar Express is, he actually doesn't have a name. And his personality is, this is going to be a short character description. Alright, I'm in a good mood. So here's my generous opinion as to why this character might be a bit dull, as it were. My guess is that this character was supposed to be a blank slate. Someone that anyone in the audience can relate to, because most of us, at least most of us who celebrate Christmas, have gone through this at one point. The whole deal with the main character is that he's reached a point where he's starting to question Santa's existence. And most people who believed in Santa have gone through this, so he's the character we're supposed to relate to.
Unless you say you went to a Christian school and at a very young age had one of your teachers tell you Santa wasn't real. Sorry.
So that's my generous opinion. Now I'm going to tell you my critical opinion. First of all, who is this kid outside this movie? Because the only things we know about him are that he doesn't believe in Santa, he keeps marbles in his robe pocket, and for some reason he has a hubcap in his room. His whole personality is reduced to skepticism, and because of that, this character comes off as kind of a downer. I just want to shake him and shout, "You're on a magical train! Would it kill you to smile?" There are parts where I like him alright, and he's a bit better at the end of the movie, or at least his mood improves a little, but as a character there really isn't much that sets him apart or makes him interesting. He's really just a blank line where you can put your own name or something.
There's really not much to say about this character. He's really just kind of bland.
The main character in Arthur Christmas is, of course, Arthur. One of the things this movie does is update the Santa Claus myth to make it a bit more plausible, and one of the things they update is the fact that the whole Santa Claus thing is treated as a hierarchy. Arthur is the current Santa's youngest son. I've heard a lot of varying opinions on this character, like how some people find him annoying, and yeah, I can see how that would be the case. I've also heard boring, which that one I don't get, but to each his own. Arthur falls under an archetype, or at least partially under an archetype, that is popping up a lot in modern animation. He's clumsy, he's nerdy, and he's kind of a walking disaster, mostly in the way, often left out of things, and looked at as kind of a nuisance.
Whenever I say archetypes don't have to be a bad thing, this is the archetype that I'm thinking about.
I'm actually very fond of this type of character when it's done well. Some of my favorite animated characters have this personality. Although Arthur seems to be a combination of a couple of different character types, in addition to that one. He's also a worrier, having several phobias and weird hang-ups like being allergic to snow or afraid of buttons, and spends quite a lot of the movie freaking out because he doesn't like heights and speed. Lastly, he's a big kid. He's totally and completely in love with Christmas, almost to the point where I would use the word fanboy. He's also incredibly optimistic, which I imagine is the reason why a lot of people find him annoying.
And usually I find the man-child archetype kind of annoying too. But in this movie it never really bothered me. I love this character. At least for me, it's honestly kind of hard not to like him.
In 2 hours, she's gonna wake up, tear downstairs, search under the tree, and the look on her face. But there's nothing there. She won't understand. She'll think she's the one kid in the whole world that Santa doesn't care about. She'll feel so left out.
He just cares so much. Not liking him would be like kicking a puppy. As for the boring thing, I don't know. It's possible people just didn't think he had much depth, but I disagree, because you can tell that things do bother him, he just doesn't let them bother him for long. In a lot of ways, I think he winds up going through a similar thing to the main character in the Polar Express, except in his case, Santa is his dad. He looks at him with blind hero worship, and when he realizes his dad is just as human as everyone else, he's sort of faced with that demystification as well. That's really his turning point as a character, too, because in the beginning of the movie, he doesn't even want to go to Gwen's house. He wants the gift to be delivered, but he doesn't think he should be the one to do it. This is the point where he's finally doing things for the right reasons. And honestly, I think his personality is important in this movie, as none of the other characters have that mysticism towards Christmas. The other characters have much more realistic attitudes. Arthur keeps the movie from ever feeling cynical. Firstly, there's the girl character, who, she also does not have a name. Well, at least she's cheerful and friendly. She behaves like you're supposed to when you're on a magical train going to the North Pole. Although once again, she too is somewhat dull, and without a name it's almost too easy to use the words token chick. One of the, I guess themes of the story are these lessons that the characters need to learn. The Tom Hanks conductor, he doesn't have a name either, so I'm just going to refer to him as that, punches letters into their tickets, which at the end of the movie are filled out with one word emphasizing the lesson the character had to learn throughout the story. Unfortunately, by the end, it kind of becomes apparent that in most cases their entire personalities are basically reduced to that one word. The chick needs to learn how to lead or be more confident, because when she's outright asked if she's certain about something, she freezes up. Apart from that, as I said, she's warm and friendly and certainly considerate, but other than that, there are really no insights into who she is. Then there's this kid who I just want to slap every time he talks. He's an irritating little know-it-all who very suddenly learns his lesson with very little provocation. And then there's Billy.
Holy crap, one of the characters in this movie has a name.
Billy obviously comes from a meager dwelling and is mostly standoffish for a majority of the movie because, as he puts it, Christmas doesn't really work out for him. Like the main character, he doesn't initially get on board the train, and when he does, he separates himself from the other kids. I guess on the basis that he's just so used to disappointment, he doesn't want to get his hopes up.
Actually, he's a little like the main character, only more interesting. Huh.
Kinda makes you wonder why they didn't just make this character the lead. I mean, he's the only character with a name. He also doesn't have faith in Christmas, and he seems like he actually has some kind of backstory that shaped his current personality. Most of the other characters are played by Tom Hanks. The conductor, of course, the hobo, and Santa. All three of these characters are sort of mystical. The conductor is just sort of that weird magical guide who conducts the train and constantly worries about a schedule he needs to keep, despite the fact that it remains 5 till midnight throughout the whole movie. The hobo actually plays off of the main character's concerns about the existence of Santa. He hangs out on the train and I guess is supposed to be a ghost. He sort of encourages doubt, but at the same time doesn't seem like a bad guy.
What exactly is your persuasion on the big man, since you brought him up?
Well, I want to believe. But
you don't want to be bamboozled. You don't want to be let down the primrose path. You don't want to be caught or duped. Have the wool pulled over your eyes. Hoodwinked. You don't want to be taken for a ride. Railroaded.
Then there's Santa. In this version, he's not the red-cheeked, jolly, cheerful Santa. He's more serious and almost wizard-like. I'm going to get a little more into this when I talk about the story, but for now, let's get back to the Arthur Christmas characters. We might as well start with a female character in this one too. Brandy Shelfley, one of Santa's wrapping elves, who somehow makes the prospect of wrapping a Christmas present with 3 bits of sticky tape seem badass. This character was actually created by Aardman on the basis that women are often left out of Christmas stories. And can I just say I love Brandy's design?
The reason I love it is actually not so much because of the semi-mohawk and eyebrow ring, although that is pretty awesome, but because her personality is not directly tied into her look.
Let me explain. In a poorly made animated film, studios sometimes try to pass off character design for personality, like, for instance, Happily Never After. Now, this might seem somewhat ironic coming from me, but just because an animated heroine has short hair, it doesn't make her interesting. But that movie will eventually have its day. Brandy is probably the most enthusiastic character next to Arthur. Her look is never mentioned, which makes her character more believable because I have an eyebrow ring, and trust me, it doesn't make you cool and it doesn't make you rebellious. She's eager to please, extremely so, and seems to have really wanted to be a part of the initial delivery, but instead was stuck in rapping, which she is damn good at. Steve is probably the weakest character in the film, as for the majority of it, he just sort of comes across as cold and uncaring. There was really a strong part of me that expected him to turn out to be the villain the first time I saw this. Steve is Santa's oldest son and next in line to be Santa. He's basically revolutionized the way the North Pole works with a lot of new technology to the point where Christmas can be executed with careful precision. When he finds out there was an error and one of the gifts didn't get delivered, he's eager to overlook it as an insignificant glitch given the scope of the operation. In reality, I think a lot of his motivation just comes from his desire to be appreciated, as his dad doesn't really give him the credit he's due. You do start to see this towards the end of the movie, but unfortunately it isn't really until the last 15 to 20 minutes, so for most of the story he just comes across as kind of cold.
Don't be upset. Look, you keep this. Then you can be Santa next time. That'll be you there, Steve. Next year, I bet. You'll be great.
How many times, Arthur? It's the North Pole. Shut the doors.